It's an ancient adage in sport that all you can do is focus on yourself and try to beat the rest, but in Formula 1 that couldn't be further from the truth. Teams are constantly watching what their rivals do, partly to see if there's anything they can copy, but also to make sure that no one is bending the rules too far, bending being the important word in this case. That's right, F1's flexi wings are back, as Red Bull's rivals look for every possible advantage in their pursuit of the reigning world champions. Today, I'll check out the accusations, who's involved this time, and what the outcome might be, so don't go anywhere. If you followed F1 for a while, you'll know all about flexible body parts and Formula 1's constant battle against them. Actually, if you've followed F1 for just under a year, this might sound familiar to you. In September of last year, talk of flexible front wings was all over the Formula 1 world, as it was brought to the FIA's attention that a number of teams were finding loopholes in the technical compliance tests, which are run on all the cars, to allow them to build some flexibility into their front wings. The FIA were prompted into action because it was believed that teams were exploiting sophisticated systems that rotate and flex front and rear wing elements in ways that cannot be detected through the regular load tests. Teams will build flexibility into wing elements to give them an advantage when traveling at high speeds. This video of a Mercedes front wing from a few years ago shows what flexi wings do really well. You can see that while on the straight and traveling at high speed, the front wing is bent back, but once the car slows for the corner, the wing bends back upwards. This happens because when the car is traveling at a higher speed, the load applied to the wing is greater, forcing it backwards. Teams will purposefully try to build this into their cars because it reduces drag whilst traveling at high speed, giving an advantage to top speed and acceleration. The FIA doesn't like the kind of flexibility in body parts because if exploited too much, it can create a weakness in the part that can be dangerous, and the rules say the only movable aero component allowed on the car is the DRS flap. Basically, a flexible wing element provides the same advantage as an open DRS flap, but to a much lesser amount. Last season, the FIA demanded the design drawings of all the teams' front wings to find out what was going on. Teams would have what appeared to be a completely carbon front wing, but underneath the surface there was flexible rubber, which was allowing two seemingly rigidly connected elements to move independently of each other. In round 15 of 2023, the Singapore Grand Prix, a new rule change called a technical directive was introduced to stop this from happening. TD018 stated that any design that exploits regions of purposely designed localized compliance, plus relative motion between adjacent components to deliver a significant boost to aerodynamic performance was in breach of Article 3.2.2 of F1's technical regulations. That states that all components that influence a car's aerodynamic performance must be rigidly secured and immobile with respect to their frame of reference, defined in Article 3.3. Furthermore, these components must produce a uniform, solid, hard, continuous impervious surface under all circumstances. To summarize, TD018 said that the team's wings aren't allowed to flex or they'll be punished. A breach of the technical regulations normally results in a race disqualification, like Hamilton and Leclerc received at last season's United States Grand Prix for floor infringements. With such a harsh punishment given out for any rule breaking, teams are normally very careful not to break the rules, but they do like to bend them as much as possible, and this season they're trying the same thing. This time it is Red Bull that is throwing accusations at other teams. Red Bull are reportedly growing suspicious of the front wings used by their F1 rivals McLaren and Ferrari. Automotor and Sport reported that Red Bull are pointing more openly with the finger at the front wings of McLaren and Ferrari, and since that article was released, Helmut Marko has called out Mercedes for having a flexible front wing. McLaren and Ferrari have been putting Red Bull under increasing pressure in recent events, and the reigning world champions are now scrutinizing their front wings and how much they're bending. Red Bull have been quoted as saying, "If this is further tolerated, we have to go the same way." So clearly, they think something's up. With a new front wing fitted onto the W15 at the Monaco Grand Prix, Mercedes made a notable step forward in performance that yielded their first pole position and podium result of the season one race later in Canada. Mercedes have been saying that their effectiveness of the new front wing is due to how they've changed their design process behind the scenes, marrying up aero with engineering departments more closely. However, it seems that Red Bull think it is actually the flexibility of the new wing which has helped give them such a big jump in performance. After the Canadian Grand Prix, Helmut Marko was asked whether his team had gone to the FIA regarding Mercedes' front wing. He neither confirmed nor denied if they had, but did say, "They have a new front wing, and on the TV pictures from Montreal, you can clearly see that Russell and Hamilton's wings are bending noticeably. However, the wings had the necessary strength when they were approved. That doesn't surprise me. I don't know how often we had to check our wings. There is a precisely defined procedure, with weights under which a wing must not bend. It's a popular game of pushing everything to the limit so it passes a technical inspection. During the race, the wing then lowers, which ensures better aerodynamics." At this point, there's been no word from the FIA on the matter, but images from the pit lane in Canada shows that the FIA are suspicious of what is happening. FIA delegates were seen inspecting the front wings of Ferrari, McLaren, and Mercedes, and were also seen doing the same thing in the Red Bull garage. Scrutineering will happen again at Barcelona, as it does at every race, but if the FIA think that something is off, they will adapt the tests to try and find technical infringements. The technical regulations regarding front wing flexibility are laid out in Article 3.15.4, which explains how front wing flexibility is scrutineered. It's important to remember that no material is ever 100% stiff. Given the right amount of load, everything will eventually bend, so some tolerance has to be built into the rules. Loads of 1,000 newtons, which is roughly 100 kilograms of static weight, is applied along 3 different points of the wing in a downward direction using a 50mm diameter ram. Fitted to a rectangular ram supplied by the team, the amount of deflection is measured relative to the survival cell and along the loading axis. The measurements that the rules are looking at are the following. When the load is applied symmetrically to both sides of the car, the vertical deflection must be no more than 15mm. When the load is applied to only one side of the car, the vertical deflection must be no more than 20mm. No part of the trailing edge of any front wing flap is permitted to deflect more than 5mm when a 60 Newton force is applied. The pushing of the regulations in this way is a battle as old as Formula 1 itself, and it's one that the FIA always eventually wins. The only question is how long can the teams hold on to their flexing wings? With all of this going on, attention will now turn to Barcelona and the Spanish Grand Prix. Despite Red Bull's complaints about their rivals' front wings, it is a race that they are expected to do well in. The bumps and aggressive curbs that caused them so many issues in Monaco and Montreal are gone, and smooth Spanish tarmac should be much kinder to the stiff-running Red Bull car. This race will be a real test to see if the gap between Red Bull and the chasing pack has really closed up. If Verstappen finishes 30 seconds ahead of second place, then we'll know it was just the track characteristics that helped the others. But if there is a battle for the race win, then perhaps the rest of the grid really have started to find a way to reel them in. Of course, if that does happen, then Red Bull will definitely have plenty to say about flexing wings post-race. Do you think that some teams are going to fall foul of flexible body part regulations? Or are Red Bull just trying to find a way to slow down their rivals? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, and if you want to know more about why Mercedes have overhauled their design team, then check out our latest video. Until next time, drive safe and bye for now.